the burqini, a swimsuit designed to respect Islamic traditions of modest dress. However, contrary to its intended purpose, this one piece gets a lot of attention. City councilors in Geneva have redefined what constitutes appropriate swimwear at public pools, in doing so, effectively banning women from wearing burqinis and bathing topless. The city first introduced pool rules in September to stop young people from swimming in street clothes. The original rules limited pool users to wearing items specifically used for swimming. Some city councilors say the new changes target women who wear full-body swimwear. They're calling it an attack on Geneva's multiculturalism, but authorities say the move is only about hygiene and is not meant to target any specific group. Geneva is just the latest European city to take issue with the burqini. In 2016, France became the first country to ban the full-body swimsuit, but the law was struck down by the courts shortly after, ruled to be a violation of fundamental freedoms. There are also similar attempts to ban the burqini in Germany and Austria. Critics say the intense attention on swimwear is a sign of rising Islamophobia across Europe. The full-body burqini is an easy target for many right-wing groups across the continent. And many people are wondering whether Geneva's move to curb its use will trigger similar action elsewhere. Basil Rehan, The Newsmakers.
Well, joining me now from New York is Nusrat Qadir Chowdhury. She's the national spokeswoman for the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. Also in New York is Masih Alinejad. She's an Iranian journalist and the founder of My Stealthy Freedom, a movement fighting for the rights of women to not wear a hijab. And in London, we have Tom Wilson. He's a fellow at the Henry Jackson Society. I thank you all for joining us. Let me begin with Tom. What do you think, Tom, of this burqini ban? Is it a good idea?
Well, look, it's perfectly acceptable for public facilities such as swimming pools to put out regulations on what people can wear when they use those facilities. You can't get into a swimming pool fully clothed. And people who wish to wear something like the burqini in a swimming pool are perfectly welcome to set up their own facilities separately. But in Europe, there's a set of values to do with gender equality, and that's upheld on things like the burqini as well.
Okay, so let me ask you, Masih, is this going against the European set of gender values by wearing a burqini and wanting to go to a public swimming pool in a place like Switzerland?
Let me be honest with you. The thing is, in my country, Islamic Republic of Iran, wearing burqini is forbidden for women because it's too revealing. So I used to wear burqini in my country, and I got arrested just because it was too revealing for my government. But the thing is, I don't understand why always our government should tell women what to wear or not what to, or not wearing hijab. They have to leave it to women to make decisions for their own body. And I'm going to tell you, it's not easy for women who grew up in a Muslim family to leave their hijab behind if they don't believe in it. I myself grew up in a traditional family, traditional society, and I was forced to wear hijab from the age of 7. When I left Iran, I replaced my hijab with a black hat, my so-called hijab. So for me, it was not easy to leave my hijab behind, because when you grow up in such a society, hijab became part of your body. Right. And you think it's like your identity, and it's not easy to leave it. But it took me 3 years to leave my hijab. But if somebody forced me to leave it, it's not going to work, because we are, facing compulsion hijab in my country, and it's not working as well.
Okay, so let me ask you, Nusrat, when Swiss authorities in Geneva say, hey, this is about hygiene, and it's about basically a social contract where we have norms and decorum here, and burqini doesn't quite fit our norms and decorum. Do you believe them?
No, I don't. I think it is a target that's specifically geared towards Muslim women or any woman that chooses to dress modestly. You have members of many societies, inclusive of Sikh communities, Hindu communities, Jewish communities, and even Orthodox Christian communities that choose to cover and be modest. And why would you want to segregate them further for having done nothing wrong? If they wish to come and be a part of a swimming experience with their families, why would you separate them further? It does not allow for anyone to integrate when you're constantly creating laws that discriminate against specific women. And this isn't something that will in any way make any level of European values any better. European values allow for a liberal, secular society that allows people to make the freedom of choice and the freedom of their attire. So this is far from being a hygienic situation as much as it is a discriminatory one.
Tom, isn't that a fair point?
Well, look, on one hand, I think it is true that this is about more than just hygiene. It's about putting forward the kind of values that we have in the West, which includes gender equality. And I don't think that public spaces and public facilities should be endorsing a worldview that singles out and discriminates against women by saying they have to dress in a more modest way and cover up more than men do. There is a serious problem of integration. I think we should start by talking about gender equality. If you wish to dress in a way that doesn't endorse gender equality in your own facilities, that's fine. But European values shouldn't be expected to change for conservative religious communities.
But it's interesting, Tom, because I'm looking at the details here. It says a swimsuit with a skirt is forbidden. City councillors reportedly voted in favor of rules requiring women to wear a 1- or 2-piece swimming costume that exposes their arms and does not come below the knee. What's interesting is when I read that, it sounded like their own rules of hijab. You know, it sounded like a kind of secular puritanism because there were very specific codes here embedded into it. What happened to Switzerland being very chilled out about wearing whatever you wanted to when you went to the swimming pool?
But it's not about secular puritanism. What it is about is a problem that we have in Europe where, on the whole, European values always favours individual liberty wherever it can. However, at the moment, Europe is encountering the growth, the emergence of an ultra-conservative and illiberal worldview that doesn't accept gender equality, as embodied by expecting women in this ideology to wear something like the burqini. And the Muslim feminist Yasmin Alabai-Brown has written very well on this and about what it represents, the idea that the female form is problematic and it needs to be covered up in some way. We don't endorse that, and I don't think our public spaces and public facilities should validate that worldview.
Masih, is this a violation of human rights? You know, frankly speaking, are your human rights being violated if you can't wear a burqini?
Can I just add something?
Okay, go ahead.
Can I just add something? I am really, really surprised that right now in Islamic Republic of Iran, all the female politicians, whether they are Muslim or non-Muslim, all the Western politicians and Western tourists are forced to wear hijab. And it's not a topic in the West because the Islamic Republic of Iran trying to say that wearing hijab is just out of the respect and you have to respect our culture. And in Europe now they say that, you know, burkini is against the Western culture. I am wondering that this is 21st century. Why we're going to come up with the result that don't write your ideology on the body of women. And I'm wondering why those women who are against burkini ban, they are silent when it comes to compulsory hijab. Because right now, the foreign minister of Iran invited the female politician from the UK, and our foreign minister was telling the female politician, the British diplomat, cover your hair.
Okay, so
and this is humiliation as well.
Okay, that's interesting. Let me take the analogy.
This is a violence against women's rights as well.
So let me ask you very briefly before I move on, is it a violation of human rights when you can't wear the burkini?
I am saying that forcing a woman to remove their hijab or to wear the hijab, it is a violation. But keeping silent about compulsory hijab and talking about burkini ban is just a hypocrite.
Okay, you feel there's a double standard there. Fair enough. Tom, let me ask you what you think.
It's a double standard, yes.
Okay, let me ask you what you think of that analogy. The fact that you have an Iranian woman here saying, hey, guess what? It reminds me of back home. When you're telling women to take off their hijab or their burkini, it reminds me of back home when women, local or foreign, are forced to wear the hijab. She creates that analogy. Do you find it disingenuous or do you see some sense in that?
Well, we're not telling people that they can't go swimming in a burkini. What we're saying is, in public facilities, they uphold certain norms and values. You're perfectly welcome to wear your burkini if you want, if you have a private swimming pool or you have some other place where you could have gender segregation if that's what some Muslim communities want in their own swimming pools. But the European values shouldn't have to change to accommodate conservative minorities. That's the main thrust of the feeling. And it's not uncommon for democracies and liberal societies to ban certain practices and certain clothing if it so offends the liberal sensibilities. For instance, here in Britain, paramilitary uniforms and political uniforms are banned. In other countries, the swastika is banned. There are certain things that offend liberal values, and if they go so far, then you can legislate against them.
Okay, so that's interesting. So Nusrat, as a hijab-wearing woman, how do you feel about the fact that, and I'm glad that Tom mentioned paramilitary uniforms and so on. So ultimately, he's talking about outfits that make people feel uncomfortable. So how do you feel as a Muslim woman who wears a hijab that Tom might be suggesting, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he can disagree with me or tell me I'm wrong if he feels that is the case, but he feels that according to some Europeans, when they see you in your hijab or a burqini, it offends their sensibilities, and they might extrapolate out of that feelings of fear and connect it to issues of terrorism and so on. And that's why they feel uncomfortable in the public space, and that's why they don't want to see you with your hijab or your burqini. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think it's an area which requires dialogue, and this is a great deal of misinformation to assume that anybody who is choosing to observe their religious practice by choice, not by force, especially in a Western society, I am choosing to wear this on my own. It is not something that someone has forced upon me. And if how I am dressed is offensive to somebody, we can begin to say this about many things. Many people may wear things that you find contrary to your own belief systems. So to just poke at one group of people and to suggest that is a clear, direct incitement against those particular people that has become part and parcel of our current climate and conversation against Muslims. And this is something that we do need to keep in mind. And to answer to Masoom's questions, in regards to any government forcing a woman to wear hijab, that is equally as wrong. There are people that have stated outwardly and spoken against this. For instance, the spiritual leader of the Muslim community, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, His Holiness Mirza Masroor Ahmed, has also told people over and over that you cannot force anyone to fall to any patterns of any faith that goes against, contrary to their own desires and choices. It must be something that people make on their own. And we cannot do this. You win hearts, not with force, but with thought and with consideration, and allowing people the freedom of choice to select what faith they wish to follow. You cannot make it compulsory, as she has suggested is being done in Iran.
Okay, so Masih, would you agree with that? Would you find Nusrat's argument acceptable, that she's saying, yes, she's against the burqini ban, she wears the hijab herself, but she's not for enforcement of hijab, whether in the West or Iran or anywhere else? Do you agree with her, and do you find that a reasonable, happy medium?
You know, what I'm saying, it's toward the female politician and Muslim community when they keep silent about compulsory hijab, which is, millions of girls are forced to wear it. My question is just, really simple. How many countries in the world forcing women to take off their hijab? And they won't be allowed to get an education or live in the Western country if they don't, accept the cultural, the Western culture. How many countries forcing women to take off their hijab? And compare it to other side, how many countries, in the world that forcing women to wear hijab? Social pressure, family pressure, or the compulsory hijab laws? And then think about it. How many times you condemned compulsory hijab, and how many times you condemned burqini ban?
Certainly.
That is what I'm saying, that female politicians, when they go to...
Okay, got it. Point well made. Tom, let me ask you just very finally, as we're in the middle of these, what are seemingly culture wars, France seems to have set the tone for it last year with their burqini ban. What does it tell us about where the continent is going now as we're seeing these sorts of issues come more and more to the forefront? We're seeing Switzerland now. Are we going to see more of this going forward?
Well, I think quite possibly, because of course Angela Merkel in Germany, who's generally been seen as a pillar of European liberalism, she has come out in favour of a burqa ban in public buildings at least. We know in Britain the public favours a ban of the full face veil. And I think that it is the case that Europe is trying to negotiate between its values of generally supporting individual liberty to do what people like, but at the same time not wanting to endorse and validate a worldview that discriminates by saying women must cover up in a way it doesn't expect men to also cover up.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure listening to all of you. I thank you all for joining us on the Newsmakers. Masih Ali Najad, Nusrat Qadir Chowdhury, and Tom Wilson. Thanks again.